Okay, I want to shift gears and talk about price discrimination for a moment. Um, this topic is covered in Chapter 14 of your textbook. It's one of several advanced pricing techniques that firms use. I think Chapter 14 is worthy of you maybe just skimming over briefly, but it's rather technical, it's kind of complicated, and I think price discrimination is actually a very simple, a very easy to understand idea. And so I want to scale it down a little bit and just define it, take you through a very simple example of price discrimination, and then work the problem that we have. Um, First of all, price discrimination occurs when firms charge different prices to different customers. This is a very common occurrence. It is not necessarily something that you see just in monopolistic competition. It can occur in any market other than perfect competition. We'll see why in just a moment. Price discrimination is legal. Don't confuse this with the form of discrimination that we frown upon. Again, this is simply a matter of charging different customers a different price. Three types of price discrimination. Perfect or first degree is where each customer is charged the highest price they're willing and able to pay. Now, that may sound a little extreme. It's perfect, and so I'm not sure that this ever occurs in the real world, but I know that with auctions, auction markets, this very often it's the case where different customers pay different prices. In the automobile market, when people buy cars, you go on the car lot, the salesperson comes up to you, asks you all sorts of questions, things like, what do you do for a living? Well, what does that have to do with buying a car? Well, they're trying to figure out how much you are willing and able to pay for an automobile. So I always say I'm a school teacher, and they usually ignore me after that. So automobile market is close. It's near perfect price discrimination. Much more common is second degree. This is where firms charge a lower price to customers who buy in bulk or buy large quantities. So maybe you're ordering t-shirts for your youth group or your softball team or your civic organization, and the seller tells you that if you'll buy 50 or more, we'll knock off a couple dollars per shirt. That's second degree price discrimination. If you've ever ordered a number 3 extra value meal, that's a form of second degree price discrimination. Also very common is third degree. This is where different prices are charged to different segments of the market. So in some markets, for example, restaurants very often will charge a lower price to senior citizens, or a lower price to children under the age of 12 or under the age of 5. That's third degree price discrimination. Colleges, universities do this a lot. If a student has a GPA, a high school GPA, or an SAT score of a certain level, they get a reduced discount, or a discount on their tuition. That's an example of third degree price discrimination. Now, question is, why exactly would firms want to do this? What's the idea? What's the purpose behind price discrimination? Well, here's a simple example to illustrate why. Let's suppose I sell coffee, and coffee, I can produce it at $1 per cup. That's my cost of production. And I have three potential customers who will buy my coffee: Kenneth, Robert, and Maya. And Kenneth is a high demand buyer. He's willing and able to pay $5 for coffee. Robert's willing and able to pay $4. Maya's $3. So let's suppose that I were going to charge a uniform price, the same price to everyone, a uniform price. Everybody gets coffee for the same price. In order to sell coffee to all three customers, what price would I have to charge? Well, to get Kenneth, Robert, and Maya in the market, I'd have to charge $3. and I would sell 3 cups of coffee, giving me revenue of $9. And again, since coffee is $1 per cup to produce, 3 cups, I subtract out my cost of $3, and that gives me a $6 profit. And again, that's with a uniform price. Now, suppose I become a perfect price discriminator, first degree price discrimination. So I'm going to charge each customer the highest price they're willing and able to pay. Well, what do I charge Kenneth? Charge him $5. Robert, charge him $4. May I charge her $3? And that's going to give me revenues of $12. Subtract out my costs, gives me a $9 profit. So, the answer to the question, why would a firm want to engage in price discrimination? To increase profit. In this case, I increase my profits by $3 by charging each customer the highest price they're willing and able to pay. Firms engage in price discrimination in order to get more customers in the market, charging more to the high demand customers, charging less to the low demand customers, generating more profits for the firm. So, real simple example. Now, not all firms can do this. Price discrimination is not possible in some markets. There's actually 3 conditions. I'll try to squeeze those in here. There are 3 conditions in order for a firm to engage in price discrimination. First, the firm must have market power. It must be a price searcher. As you can tell, I don't write any better on this whiteboard. The firm has to be a price searcher. It has to have some degree of control over price. I had to be able to charge different prices to different customers, so there has to be some market power involved there. So you can't price discriminate in perfect competition because there's no market power. Firms are price takers. Second, you have to have some way to identify the high demand buyers versus the low demand buyers. If you're going to have a senior citizens discount, you have to have some way to identify senior citizens. If you're going to have a children's discount, you have to have some way to identify the children. That's usually fairly easy. So there must be some way to segment the market. Segmentation is a word that marketers use. Some way to distinguish the different markets, the high demand users, the low demand users. The third condition, and you can see this in our example. Imagine Maya, who can buy coffee for $3. Suppose she takes that $3 cup of coffee, turns around and sells it to Kenneth. Now, Kenneth would do it. In fact, he'd pay as much as $5 for it. But if Maya did that, then she gets the profit, not me. So in order for the coffee maker, the coffee firm, to get the profit, there has to be some way to prevent resale. Some way to prevent one buyer from purchasing the good and selling it to another high demand buyer. And so usually with coffee, that's probably pretty easy. But anyway, those are the 3 conditions. In order for price discrimination to occur, the firm must be a price searcher, must have some way to segment the market, and it must be able to prevent resale. In the next video, we're going to work through a problem, a more complex problem on price discrimination. If you haven't already, you need to download that, make a copy of it, have it handy as we work through that problem.